Yeah. The dog days of summer.
Right. I mean, it's quiet before the storm. Like, we're gonna get new consoles next year. Like, shit's gonna be popping next year, so we need to. Shit's gonna be popping. Like, I've never said that sentence in my life. Fuck me. Wow. Right. Shit's
Shit's
gonna be popping next year, man. No. What's up, guys, and welcome to episode 5 of the Coffee and Beer Fueled General Gaming Podcast. I'm your host, Vin Hill, and joining me as always is my co-host from the opposite time zone, Mr. Evan Piotrowski.
all right, Vin, you know how I've been saying hello,
Yep.
hello. Well, on my plane back from England, I was watching a movie called Serenity with I can't think of his
Some
name.
dude.
Who's the guy that says all right?
Matthew McConaughey.
Matthew McConaughey. So I was watching, like, you know what? That hello reminds me too much of all right. But I want to build my brand
Evan Piotrowski's
from
brand.
like five
Like this.
5 people to like a solid
Okay.
8. All right. So I'm thinking there's got to be something. It can't just be hi. It can't just be
Right.
what's up. And originally, when we were talking about the coffee and beer cast, Vin and I had talked about, instead of trying to like have a conversation with our guests or find like a funny intro during our recordings to cut into the beginning and then start the podcast, we were going to do something like, okay, what's up? It's the coffee and beer cast, and then insert something about video games here, like some stupid comment or something controversial or whatever, and then the podcast music was going to start. And then I was thinking, like, well, that's a bit too much like the Retronauts podcast. They kind of do that, like, this week on Retronauts.
Oh, okay.
And then they start and like, okay, we can't do that. So I'm thinking I'll do that for my intro. No hi. I'll just say something that's stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll say hi. And then I'll say something dumb or controversial or a tidbit about a video game or something, and then we'll move on. Funnily enough, I can't really think of anything today, so...
This is a great start, by the way. Like, I'm glad that you brought this point up, so everyone is fully aware and prepared for the next episode.
So, although it's only episode 5, this will be my final hello.
Well, we can say farewell to Evan's normal hellos, like, together. I'm sure the world is mourning, but they're excited for the new beginnings.
Short but sweet. Short but sweet.
Just say something controversial right now. Go for it.
Oh man, I can't. I got cold feet, Vin. Please continue. I've already wasted too much time.
My brain hurts. All right. Anyway, it's August 11th. Today we're going to be talking about some past developments of the video game industry and what changed it all, what we think changed it all, maybe some bits about the future. But first, Mr. Evan Piotrowski, what have you been playing good, sir, apart from flying around in England and drinking yourself to death? What have you been playing?
Yeah. Oh man, I've been going running every day to try to get this
Try to get the beer belly out.
this extra real ale belly that I've grown since going to England for 2 weeks and hanging out with my friends. But obviously I didn't play anything while I was there. But on the plane, I actually used my Switch. I brought my Switch on the plane.
Oh wow! You wiped the dust off.
I literally wiped the dust off my Switch.
Yeah, I picked mine up the other day. Same deal. Like, I had to get a cloth out and wipe it off, and I was like, all right, maybe I should play this thing. But yeah, go on.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I got all 120 shrines again in Breath of the Wild on my Switch.
Fucking, you got some good battery life on that thing. I'll give you that.
Yeah, I started from 0 and I did all 120 on a single 3.5 hour charge. No, I had been playing like 2 years after Breath of the Wild came out. I did it all on the Wii U, 130 hours. Got it for the Switch, and I kind of like played 5 hours here and there, and then I had like 80 shrines right before my trip, and I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna hammer these last 40 shrines out. So I pulled up this interactive map where you can like, it shows where all the shrines are, and you can check off the ones that you've done.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it's just a waste of time trying to hunt.
No, I mean, I was saying this for years. Like, the way that the shrine system's set up, like if they made that shit into a mobile game, it would like Nintendo would never have to sell another game in their life. They'd just be like, yeah, this all right. Now we're billionaires.
Or just make
sort of
just
thing.
make like mini puzzles and release a couple like every month or every other
How
week or
does that
something
not
like
exist? Like Shrine Quest or something. It's just Zelda shrines
Sure.
on your phone.
Breath
Like,
of
do you know how much money they would make?
Breath of the Wild Shrine Quest Season 3 or whatever. They're fun. Like I
Yeah, no,
I
for
like
sure. Yeah.
dungeons as much as the next Zelda fan. Those are the only thing that saved Twilight Princess and Skyward Sword for me. I think those games are trash, but their dungeons are really, really good. But anyways, finished the 120 shrines again. I'm happy. I'm done. I'm done after that. Finished the game twice. 120, 240 shrines. I'm done. So when I got back, I mainlined and I just beat it today. Hyperlight Drifter.
Ooh, okay. Let's. You need to talk to me about this because, like, when I finished this game, no one else had played it, and I couldn't talk to anyone about it. So, like, this is like 2 years in the making, sort of thing. So, like, what are your thoughts on it?
Funnily enough, I remember when this Kickstarter started on Twitter. Alex Preston, I believe his name is, from Heart Machine. I remember like I saw it just randomly on Twitter, and I immediately followed either him or the company. I was like, this is my shit. This game looks great.
Super interesting.
And then like I just never played it. I think for me, 2019 is the year of at least during the halfway point where we are right now, a bit after the why the hell did I not play this game sooner year for me is this.
It's been a quiet year though, man. To be fair,
I haven't played any 2019 game or any game that's been released this year yet. I don't think. I've been just knocking my backlog out, probably starting with Doom earlier this year, and pleasantly surprised. Right. There's one thing, because you're a developer and you do like lots of side indie stuff, especially like pixel art. And there's a couple of questions I wanted to ask you before I dig into this proper.
Yeah, for sure.
I remember you just released kind of like a little pixel art guy. There's like a walking animation.
Yeah, I'm helping a friend out on his game at the minute, and he's learned how to program, so that's why I didn't run cycles.
For you, when you get into a game like this, like how long do you just like study the walking cycle of like a specific character or animations before you start like actually getting into the game proper?
The first thing that you do when you're making a game is a pixel game anyway, specifically, you make your main character animations purely because the coders need that because of timing issues and how it interacts with the world and stuff like that. So the walk cycle is actually one of the first things that you do. One of the last things that you do is actually do the art for the levels, ironically. So like most of the time, like 90% of the time that you're developing a game, it's actually just your fully flushed out sort of pixel walk animation in like a gray background sort of thing, and you're just testing stuff out. So it's one of the first things that you work on.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense because I guess you can tweak some stuff, but like especially in that game when you do your dash to get to like hidden areas, like you need to get that shit down, right? Mm-hmm. But I just imagine you, because you do this for a living, and like obviously you got your dev hat on half and your gamer hat on at the same time when you're playing games, and like I wonder how long Vin just kind of like walked around as the drifter and just looked at his animations like, okay, he's kicking up dust, that looks cool, that's a smooth animation, I like that type of thing.
There's a lot of that goes on. I mean, that's half...
It's a blessing and a curse, I
suppose.
That's
half of the reason why I actually buy pixel art games, is just so I can admire the art, which is sort of counterproductive, because when you're making a game in pixel art, like the last thing that you're thinking about is how the game looks half of the time. You're just thinking about, all right, it has to work before it looks pretty. That's like the golden rule of games development. And if you do it the opposite way, then 9 times out of 10 people will buy a game and then like not play past 5 minutes of it because it feels like trash. But yeah, I totally get in that loop. Right. Like with Hyperlight anyway. I was just looking
speaking
at
it. Speaking of the look of the game, like I love the way it looks. It's somewhere between 8 and 16-bit, more 8-bit in its simplicity, at least with like character models and stuff like that. But I love the complementary color, kind of like pink and teal, that kind of sets
it's very 80s,
the whole color palette up. But and like this came out like before the 80s is getting old now, like the Stranger Things 3 thing. It's okay, we're getting on the tail end of that, but I love the way it looks. Okay, so this will give you a good idea of like how challenging I like my games. This game has the perfect challenge for me.
Yeah.
If you're ever thinking about a game like, okay, what kind of challenge does Evan like in a game? This is it. I wouldn't want this game any easier than it is. if it was even a bit harder, that would be fine. One reason I like this game is, and actually, I went back to Podcast Reload episode 6 when Ultimate Brent came on to talk about this game.
Yeah.
And he had said, funnily enough, we were talking about difficulty in games at the time, but he just said, like, it's hard, but the game does a good job of study the enemies and how they move, and then there's a way to beat them without getting hit if you take the time to study them. So, like, the crystal dogs, don't attack them first. Dodge out of the way of their initial attack, and then you can hit them twice. And there's a bit of the rhythm to the game. You can strike up to 3 times, and then there's kind of a slight cooldown, and you have to do that and use your dash. And then, especially, I love this. That this game has one difficulty, but it's hard enough that it requires you to try out everything in your arsenal, the breadth of skills, how to dash. Okay, this guy, I can run in, hit him twice with my sword, then back up. That's when he charges and attacks. The tells are good enough that, after the first time you get hit, it's like, okay, I learned something there. And I just love the dance between that, especially when you get into one of the arena areas, and it's like, okay, I know what this enemy does, but because you played the game and you fought them in smaller numbers, now they test you. It's like, okay, these guys do this, this guy does this, I'm going to hide behind here, I'm going to draw these guys towards me, I'm going to kite them a bit, hit this guy, dash over here, block this guy's thing, come in there, shoot him with the shotgun, back up. And so I love the way this game works. And if you like this combat, you would love Hollow Knight, because I think that Hollow Knight totally prepared me for the style of combat this is. Although it's a side-scrolling Metroidvania type game, the dash and, like, the kind of the hitbox stuff, which is a little weird. Like, I often got hit in this game and not like I can't really tell where my hitbox is sometimes.
I think that's something to do with the engine, I think, because it was made in Game Maker Studio 2, I think, which is sort of like it's a weird, janky engine. It's a 2D only engine sort of thing, but it has a couple of issues like that. But yeah, I know what you mean.
It's annoying.
I've had hitbox issues.
It's annoying, but you can get used to it. Like, how did you feel about the combat when you played this?
The first time I played it, like, it really threw me off because I wasn't expecting it to be that difficult, I guess. Like, I thought it was just going to be like, because the game, like, inherently it's sort of like a Zelda, like an old 2D sort of style Zelda game where you're going through and you're exploring.
But way more challenging. Like, if you get hit,
more.
Like, one bit of life, one heart, if you will, that's a lot, because you don't have a lot of hearts.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so, like, inherently with that, like, when you get into an area where there's like 20 enemies there, you're like, how the fuck am I going to handle this? Okay, let's go with this. But it's the thing that I find most interesting about the combat more than anything is how differently everyone plays it. Because, like, if you watch YouTube videos online, I guarantee, like, if you watch someone else play the game, you'll be like, what the fuck? Like, you play like that? That's weird. And it's crazy, like, how many avenues you can actually go down. Like, I rarely ever use the gun.
Oh, really?
Ever.
I do, like, shotgun all the way.
So I was just Right. See, this is the thing, and this is what makes this game so interesting, like, in terms of the combat and the difficulty that it is, because you sort of, I don't think you create your own difficulty, but you play the game in your own way, which, plays to your strengths and your weaknesses at the same time. So, like, I see a lot of people that play with guns and they're constantly dodging out the way and just picking off guys from the edges sort of thing, which is really interesting in and of itself. But then there's me that I leveled up, like, all my stuff so I could, like, dash through bullets and go towards them and just fight, like, close range sort of thing. So I was very much into that sort of dance of it. So it's really interesting to, like, see other people play it, like, after you finished it. But yeah, I absolutely love the combat. I think it was the strongest point of the game.
One thing I like about this game, and I can't really think of another game that does this, I'm sure there's a lot more, is depending on how far away you are from an enemy, the damage that they receive from gunfire is different.
Right.
So and there's some enemies that are really hard, but if you can get in close, like, for example, if you're far away from an enemy and you shoot them with the shotgun, you might take, like, a one bit of their life off, like 1 damage or 1.5 damage. But the closer you are, like, you can get up to 5 damage with the shotgun. And there are enemies that, like, will just shoot, like, a spread at you, and they're super annoying, but they have 5 hit points. So, like, you'll dash in, 1 blast from the shotgun, and you just take them out. And then you have to, like, dash away, wait for your shotgun to reload. Like, I love that they did that. And then again, if you don't want to use the shotgun, you don't have to. You can dash in and then block their bullets and hide behind cover and then dash back at them and do what you will with melee. Yeah.
It's extremely well balanced. I think that's the
I think it's
best thing
great.
about it.
Yeah.
Though. I mean, the whole like combat chess, as they call it in Doom and stuff, like it's very similar to Doom in that respect. Like you learn your enemies, and then but the best thing about how I played Drifter for me was that if you ever died, like you knew it was probably your fault.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah, it's not cheap.
Right, there's no cheapness in this game, which is great. Like it's got a learning curve, but once you get over that curve, like it's very rewarding. And like when you get past an area or you wipe out like an area that's got like 20 enemies, 5 different types, and they're all doing crazy different things, and you figured it out, and in your head you're playing combat chess where you're like, all right, he's going to do that, so I need to do this, and you react in, and that's all. Like your body is just reacting the whole time that you're playing the game, but then when you finally do take out the last thing, you're just like, fuck yes, like I did that. Like that was all me. There was no luck involved really. It was, and I feel great about it. And that was probably the best thing I remember specifically from that game.
And especially bosses as well. Bosses are, I love how like when you first play each boss, they wipe the floor with you. And
For
then
sure.
slowly but surely you figure out their attack patterns. It's like kind of Dark Soulsy in that way. Everyone brings up Dark Souls anytime there's anything about challenge, but you just
Right.
you learn how they work, and then yeah, when you beat them, it's really really satisfying. One issue I did have with the game is
Mhm.
I don't like that there's no dialogue.
Yeah, I mean, this is the big thing, right? It's my main issue, which I had with it at the time, is the story and how it sort of handles the dialogue and stuff, and it's never really completely clear how the game works. And there is some backstory to that, and that's the creator, the guy that you mentioned before, which is Preston. Fucking hell, what was his first
Alex,
name?
I believe.
Alex, yeah, that's right. So Alex Preston, the guy that made the game, he's actually got a heart condition, hence the name of the company, which is Heart Machine.
Oh, that kind of makes
it's
sense in terms of the drifter and the
Right.
judgment or the.
And
Yeah.
if you know that backstory and you know about him, like there's a really good little mini Vice documentary on the making of the game. You should go and check
Oh,
that out.
definitely. Now that I finished it, yeah.
Yeah, and when you watch that documentary and you see the struggles that he goes through with his own illness and like the surgeries that he's had, and then if you start looking back at the game and what the drifter is doing in the game, you sort of understand how much of a personal project it was to him. But the problem was, like, for me, like I understood that like after watching that documentary, and you understand it if you read up on it a little bit. But if you don't know that, then you're sort of blind to all that shit, and you're just like the whole time you're playing the game, you're just confused. You're just like, all right, what the fuck? Like, where am I going? Why am I going over here? Like, what's it? What's this drifter doing? You know, like you don't really know. But then if you watch this documentary, then you sort of figure it out and you understand where he was coming from as a creator. So,
Right.
I recommend that you go and do that.
To wrap up that part
yeah.
quickly, I will say, by the time you get to the end of the game, you can draw enough. There's enough there for you to get a general idea of what the story was about. And I went, of course, the second I beat it, I watched a YouTube video explaining that lore, and I was like, okay, like, yeah, I get that. It's not like Bloodborne. It's not a video that you have to watch 5 times during the year because you forget what the fuck happened in that game. It is not that type of game. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, yep, okay, this is kind of what I thought was going on. Okay, I got that. One thing that bothered me about the dialogue is like they make these beautiful areas like the town, the main town, or there's certain areas where like in each section of the game, the north, south, east, and west section, you'll meet a character that's like still alive, and they just basically give you 3 pictures telling you like what happened in the area. And that's it. Like it kind of renders that whole area useless because especially the main town, because you can't talk to anyone. So they built this beautiful town out with all these moving pieces and these characters, like lots of hard work, developing these towns and making them look like this livable space and this beautiful pixel art. And you don't spend any time there because no one fucking says anything. And that's why I think it's a bit of a waste to not have dialogue, like to flesh some of these characters out, or like the bum in the alleyway, like the guy that got he came to the town, he got his shit stolen by everyone else. Like I want more of that.
Agree. Yeah,
then I spend time in the town. I don't need side quests. I just want people.
That extends throughout the whole game, though.
Yeah.
That's the problem which I had with the game. It's just like you've got this beautiful world, and it looks like it should have like a deep lore to it, and it just hasn't. Like everything in the game is very surface level. You know, it's like and the secrets are cool, and how the game works, and how you explore, and all that sort of stuff, like the dungeon areas, like the underground bits, and the fact that like the map is sort of kind of ambiguous, and you've got to figure a way around. So all that stuff is great, but not having like a decent story or any dialogue system is just it really like if it had that, it would be probably one of the best games this generation, without a doubt. Like I would probably put money down on that, but it's a shame,
definitely a missed opportunity, but it's still by far one of my favorite games of the year that I've played. And
Yeah.
I think they just released, I think in March, they released a trailer for Solar Ash Kingdom, which is their next game. It looks like it takes place in the same universe. Dude,
I did not know this.
Watch the trailer.
Check that out later.
It's a game in 3D.
Ooh,
But
okay.
It
It's a
looks like if you were to translate the Hyperlight Drifter into 3D with the color palette and all that type of stuff.
right. If it was,
It looks good, man. It looks good.
yeah.
And it's just like
Awesome.
I watched that, I'm like, I am immediately interested. But yeah, it's the challenge is there, the world is there. The whole dialogue thing, not that I wish they could have made some of those spaces more interesting with a bit of dialogue in that. But it's like probably top 3 games this year for me.
It's very like 2D Zelda, like Link to the Past sort of feel.
Especially secrets, like stuff just hidden just off screen. I loved collecting all that stuff. The dash is so fucking cool. I
recently I bought the Switch version like a year ago, and I replayed through it, and I did all the secrets. I found all the monoliths and all that sort of stuff. So
yep, I did the same thing.
It's a fucking great game. It's a really good game, but everyone should check it out for sure.
Pleasantly surprised. I'm so happy that I played it. I actually found a physical copy in a random book off.
God, I hate you. Like that's I'd love a physical copy. If you can find me one for cheap.
I wasn't even looking for it. It was like $20. I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm gonna buy this game, and I'm happy that it's good.
Yeah, if you can find me a copy, like mail it to me. I'll be your friend forever.
Yeah, all right, yeah, I'll be on the lookout. If I can find one, I will definitely do that.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, great game. Vin, what have you been playing?
Mine's gonna be pretty short. I've been replaying. It's like we were saying before. It's been a bit of a dry season, I guess. Like this year hasn't been too fantastic, I guess. But it comes with the territory of like where we are at the moment.
The dog days of summer.
Right. I mean, it's quiet before the storm. Like we're gonna get new consoles next year. Like shit's gonna be popping next year, so we need to. Shit's gonna be popping. Like I've never said that sentence in my life. Fuck me. Wow. Right. Shit's gonna be popping next year, man. No. But yeah, like the new console's coming out next year, so I think everyone's like holding their babies until next E3. It's gonna be nuts. Shit's gonna be bananas. So. It's like you've been saying, like I've been chipping through backlogs. Started playing The Witcher 1.
Right, I remember you telling me about this before.
Yeah, I got like 20 hours into that thing, man, and I really tried. It's such a terrible game.
I would designate 20 hours as trying for sure. That is a big chunk of time to put into a game.
I tried. It's just like it's so archaic and old. Like it's really not that playable anymore. They if they did like a remaster and they did it in like the Witch 2, Witch 3 engine, like fuck yeah, that'd be great. Like I'd love to see that, but it's super old. Like it's nothing like the Witcher 3. And I've played a bit of the Witcher 3, and I've played like now 20 hours of the Witcher 1. I've played mostly the Witcher 1 at this point. Yeah, it's super weird, and it's very much like you can tell it was a game that was made in 2007. Like you're walking around like trying to have sex with women, you're collecting them as cards and stuff. Like it's really like fuck me. Like when was this game made? You know, like it's really weird, but go watch a video of like how the game looks.
Right, well, how do you like? How's the dialogue? How's the story at least? The side quests.
Yeah, kind of boring. Like the fetch quests, like they're mostly fetch quests. Like it's nothing like The Witcher 3. Like from what I played of The Witcher 3, it's nothing like go here and there's a super interesting story. There's a couple of them things, but it's not the same sort of to the same degree sort of thing. But from my understanding of it, this series got good at The Witcher 2 sort of thing. So I'm gonna skip The Witcher 1 and go to that. So I played a little bit of The Witcher 1. Don't play it; it's fucking terrible. Go and watch like a YouTube video on it or something. Or just watch like a YouTube video of the first game and then go straight to the second game. Like the hardcore fans are obviously going to say, no, you have to play the first one. It's a completely different style of game, like the way like you fight and stuff. It's
Vin, I've only ever played The Witcher 3, and I still think and the DLC, and I still think all that, including the 2 DLC, is absolutely amazing stuff. in the
Right.
beginning you feel like an idiot because he starts talking about all this shit that he did in the other 2 games. I'm like, I don't know who these people are, blah blah blah. But
Dude, it's like that in the first
oh,
game.
okay.
It's honestly like that in the first game because like the first game starts like if anyone knows the books, like the way that the books are apparently set up, like they have this whole trilogy or this series of events, and then the first game is set after this series of events. So you start this and like start the first game, and people are starting talking about shit. You're like, who the fuck? We went back to Kara Morgan and we did this and we did that. I'm like, all right, right on, let's do this then. Oh, there was a great battle and there was a mage. I'm like, I have no fucking clue what's happening right now, and this is meant to be the first game. Like,
there's a goat and there's a ring in there somewhere. I don't know if the whole game is like a giant hangover.
It really is, and it's really weird to play because you kind of like this is the first game, and I wanted to play the first game because I wanted to play all 3 of them, and I just couldn't do it. So like I scrapped that. I tried to play a couple of other games, and I couldn't really get into them. And then I actually landed back on one of my favorite games of all time, my second favorite game of all time, which is Final Fantasy IX, and I've been playing this.
Is there anything that sparked this on, or are you just kind of swinging a miss with a couple games?
No,
and I'm just gonna pop this back in and
yeah, pretty much. I mean, I had my PlayStation Classic and I hacked it and I put a few games on there which I actually own physically, and I thought, fuck it, and I was chipping through I was going through the carousel.
You have given SquareSoft / Square Enix so much of your money. I do not fault you for. Yeah. I don't think anyone could judge you.
Well, there's technically no law against
for hacking
it
and putting it at all.
Like, yeah. I don't care what anyone says.
You have the physical copy of the game.
I mean, if you're like, there's no law against you emulating a game if you own it. Or if you own the console, or if you own a console that can play it. Like, that's the whole point of emulation. That's why it still exists. That's why it's never been outlawed really anywhere. It's because it's designed for that.
How many times have you played Final Fantasy IX?
Too many times. I actually can't count.
Too many times?
Yeah. I mean, I haven't played...
How long has it been since you've played it since the last
It's been about 6 years, I think. Like, last time I played it was when I lived in England, so it must have been 6-7 years ago.
So 6 years after the 8th time you've played the game, like how does it hold up?
It holds up really fucking well. I was actually really surprised how well it holds up, actually. Story's great, the art looks great. The only thing that really looks off at this point is like the backgrounds look a little bit pixelated, I guess, but they're not.
Yeah,
it's not so bad. Like when you play Final Fantasy 7, for an example, like you can tell like they were still figuring this shit out. Like you can tell like the really crappy sort of 3D models and stuff that they rendered out to have the backgrounds and stuff. Like it just looks awful. Like the scaling is off. Like in a lot of the backgrounds, you can tell like 10 different people worked on it and they weren't really talking to each other and shit. And then Final Fantasy 8 is a little bit better. It gets a bit closer, but Final Fantasy 9 is like that's sort of like the coup de grace to like the pre-rendered background Final Fantasy era. And
right. I mean, it was their third crack at putting a Final Fantasy game on a PlayStation console, and
it's stunning.
I mean, like, different team probably, but
yeah. I mean, Final Fantasy 9 is mainly made by the Hawaii team. I think it was mostly development done by them guys. Like most of the backgrounds are done by Americans, which is sort of ironic and funny.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Like, because it wasn't meant to be a mainline Final Fantasy. Like, it was meant to be like a Mystic Quest sort of game. Like, it was meant to be like a
like fucking Crystal Chronicles type of thing.
Yeah,
I mean, funnily enough, that it's the same similar artwork as well.
Yeah, it was. I think it was like the original title for the game was Final Fantasy Memoriam or something. It was meant to be a nod back to the old Final Fantasy, so like Final Fantasy 1.
Oh, that totally makes sense because it is.
And they got halfway through development because it was being made at the same time as Final Fantasy 8, and they got halfway through, and I think the guys at head office were just like, "Fuck, this is looking good. We should just like rename this now."
Yeah, it's like, holy shit, this game is great.
Yeah,
it's got to be the next one.
Yeah, and to their credit, like it's Sakaguchi's favorite Final Fantasy. It's Nobuo Uematsu, the composers. Like it's his favorite Final Fantasy. Like most of the people who worked on it said this was their favorite, and it still holds up, man. It's great. Like
it's one of my favorites as well. I'm totally biased, so I'm not going to say anything here.
Yeah, I mean, I won't talk about it too much. Like, if you haven't played Final Fantasy 9, I'm not going to sway that many people over, apart from fucking Mitch Secure. Like, I'm so glad that he's playing it right now.
I'm really interested to see what he thinks.
I'm nervous because, like, I've got, like, this whole nostalgia thing in the back of my head. Like, that's egging this thing along sort of thing. So if he says anything bad about it, I might, like, hunt him down or something. So,
yeah.
so it's not so bad. But, no, the game's great. The story still holds up. I think it's like really playful, sort of fancy, like European style fancy. The art is still great. Like I'm playing it on the classic as well. Like I'm not even playing like the HD remaster. Like I'm playing like the old original PS1 version.
Okay,
And
I have a question about that. Like,
still holds up.
how does playing that game with an old school controller, does it like just bring it all around, and does it come full circle? Like this is the way it's supposed to be played. Like, you know what I mean?
I think I'm pretty indifferent on that. Like it doesn't.
Okay.
I don't think it makes a difference, honestly. Like people complain about the PlayStation Classic because it doesn't have analog sticks on it, but within 5 minutes of playing a game, like it's like you don't give a shit.
Sure.
It's like when you go from playing a game in 60 FPS and you go to one that's in 30 FPS. Like when you go and play an FPS game, like a first person shooter, and then you come back to like God of War or something like that, and it's like it's half the frame rate. Like at first you're like, oh, this looks awful, and then within 3 minutes you're just like, oh, whatever, it's gone. Like you don't even think about it.
Right.
It's the same thing with the console. Because like the way them games were designed, they were designed for the D-pad in mind, I guess, as well as analog. So like if you hold left, like it's actually relative to where the camera position is.
Okay.
So there's a path that's vaguely going off to like the left, but it's more like left, sort of like northwest sort of thing. If you hold left, then he'll follow the path. He won't just go like straight left and hit the corner of the path, if that makes sense. Yeah, so like they knew what they were doing at the time, and it still works, and it's great.
Good to know.
So it's awesome. I mean, the music's awesome, the game's awesome. Like, go play Final Fantasy 9. The only thing that's really aged is the like the combat system, obviously, because ATB, we haven't had a real ATB system, like where we're waiting for each other to take turns like it's fucking chess. Like we haven't had that in a few years. And Final Fantasy 9 is the most egregious out of like the PlayStation 1 era of games, where they've got like a really long introduction to every single battle, and then like all the music and all the camera spins and all that sort of shit, and you can't skip that. And then after that you have to wait for all their bars to load, and then you've got to start fighting. And it's probably the longest out of all of the Final Fantasies that does that, and it gets really annoying when you're playing the game for like 90 hours or something.
It probably needs like a speed up on the combat a bit.
That's the thing. That's the good thing about having the classic, though, is because like you've got it hacked, so I can assign a button to just fast forward and perfect. Just blast through that. So that's cured.
Final question: have you been playing some Chocobo?
Fuck yeah, I have. Hot and cold.
Hot and cold,
yeah,
man.
Like that's my jam.
I love that. I think so much more than I should have. So good.
Yeah, I've been playing Hot and Cold. Like I've got every fucking Chocograph so far, I think, and then I've got like 80 of the cards, like unique cards so far. Like I'm playing the shit out of the card game. Because I will fight anyone.
Tetra Master?
Yeah, I will fight anyone that says the Final Fantasy 8 card system is better than the Final Fantasy 9 card system. I will die on that ground.
You were my best friend at this particular moment.
Right.
I fucking love Tetra Master so much more than whatever the fuck that.
And there's so many people out there that hate it. Like,
yeah.
And I'm just like, why?
I just listened to like a Game Informer podcast where they were trashing it over the FF8 version. And I was like, no.
Fuck them. They've got no style, better. No class. No intelligence. Fuck them. No, they're wrong.
Tetra Master is so much better than Triple Triad.
Yeah, for sure, man. And that's why they actually made it a standalone game, and they put it into Final Fantasy 11, I think it was. Like, so you could play like cards with people in Final Fantasy 11 online. Which, oh god, I wish they would bring that shit back. That'd be so, like, can you imagine like a Gwent style game or like Hearthstone where it was just Tetra Master?
I like how. You have this mind where like you see like a system, you're like, just shave that off and
just make it simple, put it in a mobile game.
Like a downloadable thing so I can play like Tetra Master on my iPad.
I think
I'd fucking play that.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like that's my main problem in mobile games. Like I can never find like a good one to really attach myself to. So I'm constantly like trying to come up with like what would be a good mobile game. I guess like that's what happened. But yeah, anyway, I'll wrap this up. But Final Fantasy 9, it's an amazing game. I think it's the best on the PS1 just from a technical aspect, and just it doesn't follow as many as the Japanese tropes as the other two, I guess, as well. Like it's very, you can tell like Westerners had a good hand in this. Like there isn't like the moody main character or anything. Like the main character's like kind of happy to be there sort of thing, which is kind of weird for a Japanese game, which sounds really dumb, but it's totally true. Like every Japanese game I play these days, like you look at Noct and Final Fantasy 15, or it's just like, oh, I don't want to go anywhere. I just want to stay here. And then he gets dragged into this fight, and it's like, oh man, this is boring. Like, why are they so sad all the time? It's fucking emo kids. But yeah,
It's very whimsical and lighthearted. Like you're going on a journey, you're going on an adventure, with this kind of ragtag group of heroes, not these brooding stoic, like boring people. No, Vin, if you gave this game any less time to shine in the sun, I would have stretched it out and talked about Tetramaster for another 5 minutes. So,
but yeah, we should probably move on anyway.
Great game.
Yeah, for sure. Go play it if you haven't already, and if you do play it and if you've got criticism for it, keep it to yourself because I don't want to hear it. It's amazing. But anyway, moving on. We'll talk about our topic this week, which is going to be what are the biggest sort of gaming shifts in the past and where we go from there and stuff. Maybe we might have a bit of time at the end to talk about like where it's going to go in the future, but we're mostly going to be focusing on the past at this point. But
so does this topic come from kind of the advent of a new generation coming next year? So kind of let's look at some...
Yeah, I think so. I think it's sort of like a retrospect thing. So you look back at, could we see the changes coming, and when they came, like were they as big as we thought they were at the time, and all that sort of stuff, like just big shifts. So like what I'll push this over to you like straight away, like what sort of things like jump to mind, like when you think, all right, what was like a good shift that really changed the industry for you personally? Like what comes
I guess we're going to possibly jump around here a bit, which is fine.
Yeah, for sure.
But one of the memories that will always stick in my head no matter what will be the first time that I saw Mario 64, which would also be the first time I saw anything playing on an N64. Yeah. There's a Toys R Us about a mile and a half from my house, so probably like 2.7 kilometers or something like that. And went to Toys R Us and they had like an N64 stand out. 1996, I imagine, summer maybe. I think that came out later that year. And it's the classic. I remember seeing Super Mario 64 and thinking graphics will never look better than this. I wish that game looked like what I remember it looking like when I first saw it. Because I didn't have a PC growing up. We got a compact Presario when I was like 16, strictly because
your family is so weird. You get that and the PC Engine or the TurboGrafx 16. I think you're just living the dreams.
I think my mom just totally did the classic like fuck up, like going to GameStop and like, you have that old station that plays the games, and then the guy was like, oh, here's a TurboGrafx 16. Although we need to get rid of these.
Totally, we got loads of them in stock.
Nintendo, and he got a fucking TurboGrafx 16. I'm pretty sure that's what happened because it was my brother's. It was October. It was my brother's 10th birthday. So it would have been 94. And yeah, I remember coming home and like, what the fuck? I'd never heard of it. Yeah, I was playing the TurboGrafx 16. That was totally a classic parent fuck
Well,
up.
It's rippled through time because of that fuck up. Like you and your brother obviously grew up with those, but now I have to fucking buy a TurboGrafx 16 Mini.
It's a fucking deal. You get 57 games on that thing. Holy shit. There's a bit of overlap. But anyways, so like...
Yeah, sorry, go on.
I remember I didn't even know anything. It's like I was looking at game magazines, but 96, I was like 11. But I didn't really know much about it. And I just remember seeing the stand where, it's like the classic
you got the
screen
TV
with like the bolted controller sticking out from like a plastic, the N64 and the plastic casing type of thing, screws in it and all that type of stuff. And I just remember sitting there and playing. It was basically like the first area where you have to go, or I don't know the name of the picture you jump into. You just go up the mountain and defeat like the bomb with the horns on his head.
Right. I know what you mean.
And it was just like, I just remember, this is the first time I'd ever seen an analog stick. Aside from like the Atari joystick, and it just, everything worked. And it was like what Mario does completely, like the triple jump, the long jump, like all, I was like, I can't believe I can do so much with so few buttons. And it was like the best game that I'd ever seen. I just remember like almost every day I'd walk 5 miles uphill in the snow. No, I'm just kidding. It was like I said, it was like 2.7 kilometers.
Well, you did grow up in Milwaukee, so that's definitely a possibility.
Yeah, if my parents hadn't purchased it for Christmas that year, I would have been walking in the snow just to play whatever they had on the N64 in that practice, or the whatever that plastic encased area. But I just kept going to Toys R Us almost every day just so I could play that. And I barely even played the game. All I was doing was like jumping around, climbing trees, and I just thought like looking back on it now is like they couldn't have done a better job of translating 2D platforming into the 3D realm. And it pretty much showed probably how many developers like, oh, it 3D platforming totally works in a 3D split space. It's not jumping
Yeah.
flash, which like was cool at the time, but like Super Mario 64 like wiped the floor with any game that up to that point. That it's like when I think I don't remember which game it was, but Kojima wanted to have like an open world Metal Gear Solid, and his team's like, "That's not possible." And then he saw Assassin's Creed, and he went back to his. It was like the bad guy in Iron Man. He's like, "Tony Stark built this in a cave with scraps. Why can't you do this?" I see him in my mind just fucking just tearing his team apart. Like, you said this is not possible. What the fuck? Get on it right fucking now. So like I just see like people looking at that game like, someone must have said it's not possible, and it was.
Right. So. I can imagine there was a lot of developers back then in like 96 when it came out. I think it was 96, 97. Must have been just being like, we want to do something like that, but I don't know how possible that is, because I think people forget like the year before that people were making Super Nintendo games. Like that shit is bananas. Like I think Chrono Trigger came out in like 94, so they must have been making Super Mario 64 the year after that,
the transition shouldn't have been that smooth,
right?
That's the thing.
And I think that's what jumps to mind, especially with like them games that switch to 3D. I mean, it's the same thing with Final Fantasy 7. Like if you look at Final Fantasy 6 and you look at Final Fantasy 7, just the technical jump of that is just,
it's pretty amazing.
It's insane. Like none of it really makes sense. It's like how
say what you will about the graphics now, like right. It's still absolutely amazing.
Yeah, retrospect is a beautiful thing, but like at the time, like how the flying piss fuck did you even figure that out? Like, who came up with this? Like the cameras and stuff. Like they must have hired a guy that was just like, all right, you're going to work with 3D cameras, and he's like, I've been making Super Nintendo games so far. Like, what the hell are you talking about?
Right, right.
Can you imagine
exactly.
that?
Like,
shit's bananas.
And he like nails it, at least to the extent like that he needed to at the time, right?
And it works, right? Yeah, we're gonna make pre-rendered backgrounds. Like, what? Yeah, you're gonna make them in 3D first, and then you're gonna take pictures of them. You're gonna paint over them, and then we're gonna put them in the game, and then the dude's just like blank. It's like, okay.
And as the camera's zooming in, we're gonna have like FMVs with like sprites that you actually control,
right? It stopped for a second there.
Like, yeah, it's like,
what the fuck is an FMV? Oh, it's like an anime, but
imagine when he was like first told that, he just like hid in the broom closet and like cried.
Yeah, like what am I doing? Like I wanted to make Final Fantasy 7 like the Final Fantasy 6 sequel, and I got into this shit, and then it turns out to be like one of the highest selling games of all time. So yeah,
that is an interesting parallel, because you look at 6 to 7 or like Super Mario World to Super Mario 64. It's more amazing the more you think about it. How that transitioned.
Like people look at the jumps from like Final Fantasy 9 to Final Fantasy 10, and like that's quite impressive, but it's not so much of a stretch. It's just like, okay, we're no longer pre-rendering the backgrounds, we're just putting the 3D objects into the game now, right, so we can spin the camera around. And so that jump isn't as crazy, even though it is in terms of like fidelity and like going from SD to DVDs and getting higher fidelity, all that shit. Like it makes sense, but that's like an evolution that sort of makes sense,
right?
But going from literally 2D pixel art to fucking 3D, like that is just, it's crazy, and I think people take for granted, and especially like games like Mario 64 really helped make that push for sure.
Right. Yeah, so that's definitely that's the first time I saw that game in a Toys R Us. Well, I'll never forget that. How about you? What is one of like the biggest gaming shifts of the past that is burned in your memory?
Like exactly the same thing, man. That was my first point, which I had written down as well, which was 3D, like the shift to 3D for the first time. Like not just on N64. I know that was probably the first one to do, I guess, because they were early out the gate, but between Sega Saturn and PlayStation 1 and PC as well, like all sort of four of them like working together was super interesting at the time, because Saturn was doing a lot of stuff as well, which people like Sega Saturn didn't have quite enough power to do full 3D, so they were doing a lot of sort of 2D trickery 3D games, so it had like 3D backgrounds with 2D sprites everywhere and stuff.
Right, and I'll just, as a side note, like I didn't see any of that stuff. So like I went from
Right,
SNES
turbo
to
graphics.
yeah, I went from the TurboGrafx to the N64. So it wasn't. Maybe that's why maybe Super Mario 64 was like more amazing than it should have been. But yeah, anyways.
No, yeah, for sure. I mean, and I think everyone is like that. You're not alone in that. And I was the exact same as well. Like, I didn't have a PlayStation 1. I didn't have an N64. I got a Sega Saturn that year. I was one of them kids.
Oh, so
what,
basically we're in the same boat, but I'm a
pretty much.
TurboGrafx 16
And I think,
kid. You're a Sega Saturn kid.
yeah, it's interesting that like people, it's like, oh, do you remember this game on the PlayStation 1? Yeah, it came out first on the PlayStation 1. And I'm always there like, no, that came out on Saturn first. They just ported it over because the Saturn was failing. That's literally what happened.
And then all your friends just start like pushing you and throwing rocks. Boo! No one knows what you're talking about.
Right. Well, I think a lot of people forget that we literally went from the Sega Genesis to the Sega Saturn, or the Sega CD, I guess, but not like the install base wasn't that fantastic on that. To go from that, like that jump alone was probably a bit more of a predictable, because like they were still using a lot of 2D graphics in Sega Saturn games. But like Tomb Raider came out on the console first over the PS1.
Oh, it did? I didn't
like
even
Wipeout
know that.
came out.
Whoa, wow.
Yeah, a lot of people don't. Like Wipeout came out on Sega Saturn before PS1, and like a lot of people think that they're like homegrown sort of PS1 games, and like no, they're really not. I mean, obviously it could be argued that Tomb Raider came out on the PC first. It's not about who's first. That's not important. My point is, it's just like everyone had one of those four things, like one of those four sort of platforms that they made that jump on, like going from 2D based PC games to full 3D. Like the first time people played Half-Life, it just fucking blew their minds, because they were used to Doom and stuff like that, right? And having like an integrated story and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, just the general shift from 2D to 3D is just absolutely crazy. And I had the exact same experience as you. Like the first time I saw Tomb Raider, or the first time I saw Wipeout on the Sega Saturn, or the first time I played a game called Bug, which is like one of the worst games in human history.
I've never heard of this game. I'm looking it up right now. Please continue.
Everyone, like while you listen to this, if you've got a phone or something,
I'm already laughing.
Go look at this game. Yeah, it's fucking awful. It's basically like a gridded sort of platform game. And it's their idea of like making a 3D platformer before Mario 64, I would assume. And you can tell like they're still trying to figure shit out, and that was them being like, oh no, we can't do a game like Mario 64 because it hasn't been invented yet, so this is like the best thing we can come up with at the moment. And Bug is like a really interesting sort of look into the past of how they were thinking at the time. And Bug did reasonably well. Like it was pretty well received at the time. Then Mario 64 came out and destroyed it, I guess.
I wish I could have like laughed harder at this, but this looks all right. I mean, you got a lot of foreground background shit going on. You got 2D sprites in the 3D space. You're moving on like it's very linear. It's not an open 3D world. It's like, yeah. Okay.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the same thing happened with there was another game on the Sega Saturn, one of the first like big 3D RPGs, I guess, that I played, which was Shining Forces 3. I'd never played any of the other Shining Force games. I wasn't really into Final Fantasy at the time. That was the first like RPG that you could play, and it was full 3D backgrounds as well, so it wasn't like pre-rendered. So you could spin the camera around in the world and stuff. And
what did you hit, like R1 or R2?
Exactly, like the shoulder buttons, right?
Yeah, shoulder buttons. Dude,
first time
I bet
that
when
happened,
you play this, it looked fucking amazing.
Right, first time that happened, I was like, oh my god, you can turn the camera. Can you do that whole game? And it blew my mind. Like as like a 10-year-old kid.
I can totally see that now. Yeah, this
bananas.
Yeah.
And that was one of the first games I got on my Sega Saturn. So I literally went from a Genesis to a Sega Saturn, and that was the first game that I played. And to be able to spin a camera, that was just, what the fuck is happening? Because I was looking at my cousin who got a PS1 later on, and he was playing Final Fantasy 7, and the camera was locked, and I was laughing at him. I was like, you can't even spin the camera, sort of thing. It's funny in retrospect, but it's one of the things.
Say what you will like about Minecraft. I've never played it. Not a big fan of that style of game, but one thing that game did do is train people to appreciate low poly design.
Absolutely.
to the point where this game, looking at it right now, does not look that bad.
No, it's
And
really not.
kids who played Minecraft for years and years, if they looked at this, they'd be like, yeah, that looks pretty good. I'm pretty sure they would. If Minecraft didn't exist, they would fucking trash this game based on visuals alone. So
Yeah, and
I will say that about Minecraft.
Yeah, I think the thing that dates more than anything is just like controls more than anything, like how a game feels. I think that's what dates games more than anything these days. Like, because you can play like an old looking game and it's not so bad. But yeah, that was the big jumper for me from like 2D to 3D, I guess.
Yeah, this game would have blown me away back in the day for sure.
But the next point which I wanted to bring up, like other than going from 2D to 3D, which is obviously probably going to be the biggest thing for everyone listening to this, was online play. I know you don't play online games. So,
what does that mean?
Like, this is a bit.
What is that?
I know, right? It's actually, you can actually connect like two consoles together, like over the magic of the internet. I know, it's amazing. I promise.
Wait, are we?
And then you can.
Are we online right now?
Maybe.
Oh shit!
I'm not sure. Are we?
I thought
it's just cup and string.
I just thought
that's it.
That's okay. All right.
Yeah, welcome to the new world.
For the sake of the podcast, like, I think I get what you're talking about, but please continue. I'll take notes.
Right. Like online play came about, and a lot of people defend the Sega Dreamcast on their first sort of steps into the online realm and stuff, and I totally agree. But the first game that really did it, and I think everyone would probably agree with this, is Halo 2. Like the first time this game sort of flicked on the servers and everyone was able to just play across the world. Like that really opened up to what online play could be, and I'm pretty sure it shifted the whole entire industry more than anything during like sort of the Xbox and 360 stages, like that sort of weird transition that we were going through, where like all the storefronts for like the PS3 and the Xbox 360 like weren't designed for like online stuff really. Like they were just designed for like being an offline console, like the PS2 was and the original Xbox. So having that sort of preemptive strike on the original Xbox for Halo 2, it just completely changed everything. And you could sort of see it coming almost, like if you played a lot of these sort of style of games. I remember being in my first year of college. College in the UK is like 16 to 18, so like around that age, I guess. And people were installing the original Halo 1 on all of the computers, and we figured out that we could LAN the game like over the college computers, which was really funny because so everyone was just playing Halo like instead of doing their work, or they were playing Homeworld. Shout out to the original Homeworld on the PC people.
Yeah, over my head, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, playing them games like over a LAN, and like people were having LAN parties and stuff, and like we used to do all that shit. So when they finally did switch on the servers and people started playing games online, and then Halo 3 came about, and the same year that Halo 3 came out was Modern Warfare, like the original, like Call of Duty Modern Warfare, the original one, not the new one coming out. Fucking stupid names. All of that shit sort of hit at once.
Tomb Raider 2015.
It's annoying as hell. Yeah. I know. Stop calling the games the same title that the original were called. Anyway, but going from just playing games by yourself to having that social aspect to it, I think that shifted the industry for good or worse. You know, like there's arguments either way. I know yourself, like you don't play that many online games or whatever, but there's a lot of people that do, and there's a lot of people that think that it's brought a lot of negativity, but it's also brought in a lot of like the streaming side of it, all that sort of stuff. Like none of that would have happened if there wasn't some form of like online play. And obviously it was going to happen at some point because of the internet, but I just think it can't be understated like how much of like a seismic shift that was at the time. You know, like it's absolutely crazy. Like think about that, like going from playing like Final Fantasy 10 or whatever, and then suddenly like you hear about your friend who's playing Halo with someone that lives on the other side of the world. It's just like, what? Like we've only just figured out fucking email. Like how are you doing that? You know?
Right.
And just the amount of games that came out like quickly after that in quick succession that had online play that worked pretty decently out the gate. Like I know a lot of people like trash like working on like 56k dial-up and all that sort of stuff. But, like, games like World of Warcraft and things like that, they all came out around the same period. But the biggest hitter for me was Halo 2, and just playing, like meeting people online, and the community is relatively like new, so everyone was sort of friendly to each other because they sort of saw it as like a real world thing, and they didn't realize that they could trash talk each other and not get in trouble for it yet, like, so it was a relatively nice
and thus
environment.
the modern internet had been birthed.
Sounds like the backstory to the Matrix or something, right?
Yeah,
people
Morgan
are playing
Freeman.
Halo 2 now, but yeah, I think that was like one of the biggest things which I saw. But yeah, they were the two big things, which was switching from 3D and playing Halo 2. Like, that just kicked everything off. So yeah, good times.
All right. I'm not quite sure about this competitive online multiplayer world that you speak of, but
It's pretty weird. Yeah.
actually, I do know about online. I just realized it now. The final thing that I will touch on is how do you want to say? I don't want to say legitimate games, because that makes it seem like the games that weren't online were not real. But
single player games, you mean? Or
okay, well, I'll say this, and you can define it however you want. I
Dive
remember,
in.
like, I had a PlayStation 2 until like 2012. Like, I got my
That's
PlayStation
bananas.
3 in 2012 in Japan, when I actually had a real job and I could finally afford it. But anyways, my brother had an Xbox 360, and I remember in 2008 he downloaded Braid,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
we played Braid, and I was like, you can like go online and like download like a legitimate like fucking game from the internet and play it on your X. Like, that shit blew me away. For some people be like, holy shit, what the fuck is this rock this guy been living under? But for me, like, the idea that you can just, and there's no physical copy that exists. That was like the first point where like I realized like that was even possible. And then
something was changing. Yeah.
Just played the shit out of Braid with my brother, just handing the controller back and forth. And that was the first time I had ever seen that, like, non-physical copy games, like full games, full single player games, being you're able to download it from the internet and just play it on your system. Like, that shit blew me away. And yeah, that was like the first time I had seen that happen, because I was still playing like Prince of Persia something or other in 2000. I think I just played that game last year. I don't know what's going on, but yeah, that was like, I just remember that moment where when we started playing Braid, I couldn't believe you just downloaded this from like an Xbox store online. Like, that shit. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. And it spawned a whole industry as well. Like, I think, I mean, the indie boom is mainly sort of started to die down now, but I don't, like, people say that, but I really don't think it is. I think it's just been so saturated that the same market share is being shared, but by more people. That's all.
I agree.
Think it's the same amount.
It's saturated,
the same
but
amount
it's
of people
still there.
downloading
Yeah.
them. For sure. And I think the good thing about that, it actually brings up the quality of indie games, because like, you have to get a really good game to rise to the surface. And I think we needed games like Braid, like Super Meat Boy, like them games that came out around that time when downloadable games were a thing, when they started coming in.
Like high quality,
original,
like top shelf games.
Oh, yeah.
Like games that could go
Fucking
toe to toe
awesome
with
games.
any AAA game. Well, I mean, depending on what you like, but yeah.
Right. I mean, there was a lot of, even back then, there was a lot of shovelware, like being just pushed onto the Xbox
like
360
Bejeweled
store. And Braid
whatever,
was,
yeah.
Fuck yeah, man. Bad times, I guess.
The
but,
dark ages.
Yeah, but that needed to happen, though, because then we got games like Braid, like Super Meat Boy, that sort of elevated it. And it's like, oh shit, this is a viable thing. These aren't just like crappy sort of mobile-esque downloadable games that you play for 5 minutes.
Viable is the good word. Is a good word to describe that.
Yeah,
definitely.
But yeah, I mean, it's spawned a whole industry. There's like so many. There's whole companies now, and there's people that are just working from home and they're thriving in this industry, just making pixel art games in 2019, which is crazy. Like the game that we were talking about before, Hyperlight Drifter, would not have come about if games like Braid went out there like on the store by themselves without physical copies, which is sort of ironic because you can probably buy a physical copy of Braid somewhere now.
I fucking wonder. Yeah, that'd be wild if you could. But yeah, no, I think you're totally right. Yeah, that was like the beginning of that. Like the indie game scene where you could just, like you said, just build a game from your house and like, put it on the Xbox, whatever store. I don't know what the fuck it's called. But yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I think everyone had like a game like that they played, especially on the 360, because that was like the first console that really did it, I guess. I mean, on PC, it wasn't really that much of a new thing because Steam was starting to pick up. Steam, no pun intended, I guess.
Steam, the Steam was starting to rise, if you will.
Right. Yeah, there you go. That's a good one. Yeah, so there was other things, but to have that on a console there was something unique about that. You know, like having a controller in your hand and then just downloading a game with a push of a button and not having to like log in and do like crazy stuff or go to their website and buy it that way or anything. Like you could do it all from the console or controller. Like that experience is still true to this day. Like if you go onto your PS4 and you buy a game, like you can do it all through the controller.
Well, it's a given now, but yeah, back then it was like it was
yeah. At the
revelatory for me.
time, it was just it was mind blowing. I totally, I'm on the same page on that one. That totally slipped me because games like Braid and Super Meat Boy. What else? There was another. This is funny shit, but Final Fantasy Crystal Defenders came out on the 360, which was like
I've never heard of this.
It's an amazing game, and I've still got my trees.
Are you sure?
I'm telling you, man. It's a tower defense game with Final Fantasy sort of classes, and it's amazing. Like you should totally check it out. It's an amazing game.
I will take note of it right now. Crystal Defenders. All right.
Yeah, and like playing them games when they first came out, like that shit blew my mind. It's like this game doesn't exist physically, and I just bought it and I'm playing it, and it doesn't really make any sense. Which is sort of really funny to think about that in retrospect, but at the time, like that was bananas, you know. But
for sure,
yeah,
good times,
crazy times. All right, we've got like 5 minutes to wrap up, sort of thing. So
yeah,
real quick,
just so people don't like freak out about this, whatever, you know, like. We got Atari, we got Donkey Kong in the arcades, we got the NES and Super Mario Brothers, the Game Boy. We got Steam, which you didn't talk about, VR. Like, yes, there's all that stuff. But I think everyone talks about this stuff all the time. And I think one important thing about at least what we do is like just anecdotal stories about what we remember being growing up or our singular experiences with games. And I think it's like highlight 2 or 3, Absolutely. And then that's what we got going on. But yeah, those are the 2 things for me, 2 things for you that just kind of stuck out and will just be burned into our memories of like these huge moments in gaming where things felt like they changed.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think like in the last sort of 5 minutes here, like we'll take a couple of minutes each, but what do you think going forward into the future? Like what's on the horizon sort of thing? You don't have to go into like massive detail, but what do you think like is going to be like the next big shift sort of thing? I know these things are hard to predict because we couldn't have predicted like how crazy like the first time I saw Metal Gear Solid, like how the fuck do you even comprehend that at the time, you know? Like, but like, is there anything that sort of stands out to you that you think is going to be like, all right, this is probably going to be a big thing?
I'm going to go in a slightly different direction with this because I'm really bad at predicting anything.
Yeah, anything, game, platform, whatever.
And I'll always remember when the Division 1 trailer first came out and a guy was hiding behind a car and the car door was slightly ajar. And as he's sliding over to the boot of the car, I've been in England, I've learned that word. As he's sliding past the door that's slightly ajar, he closes the door. And it's those singular, like, remember in Uncharted when the first game when you slid through like a really narrow area in a cave and he puts his hand on the wall? It was just like one of those things that seems so human. It's like the uncanny valley, and it's like at those moments, games jump the uncanny valley because it makes it seem so human to do that. Because you would do that. Fuck like 8K and all this stuff. They're talking about prepping for that stuff. If you make a game 60 FPS, I'm fine with that. I want to see those little extra pieces of love put into a game that just make the movements seem more believable. Not necessarily human, because the character that you're playing in a game doesn't have to be human, but those little things, closing the door, putting your hand on the wall as you crawl through a very narrow cavern, all those little things that just make it seem more believable, like that suck you into that world, whatever the world may be, with high fidelity or more cartoonish graphics or anything like that. Those little things are something that in the future I want to see more effort put into. And yeah, that's the one thing that I want to see, and I hope that happens with more games.
That's a good pick, actually, because it's something that you don't really think about. But
it makes
when it comes to the uncanny valley,
it really does. It's does. Like whatever Steve Jobs says, like, you don't sell them what they want, you sell them what they don't know that they want. No one thought about a guy hiding behind a car and closing the fucking car door. No one thought about that.
While in cover getting shot.
Like, oh, that was awesome. right? So
Right.
I want to see that.
I mean, yeah, it's interesting with the uncanny valley, because you can actually get photorealistic results like with
Sure.
still images. Like to this day, like it's actually not that difficult. Like in terms of like rendering capability and the like the tools that we have, we can actually do that pretty successfully now. But once it starts moving, like you instantly know that it's fake. Like like all right, that looks weird. It looks off. But I think to what you're saying, I think there's going to be a lot of jumps like that where we'll have a lot more horsepower to actually put in them tiny little details, which I totally agree. And we call, like in concept art, we call that juice, like the
Oh,
like the
okay.
flavor of it,
First time I
like
heard
just
that. That's
the extra
interesting.
level of stuff.
Some
Yeah,
lingo.
so like you just add them
Cool,
little
cool.
details. Yeah, that really help it. But yeah,
All right,
totally
how about
totally
you?
agree. For me, I think the next big shift, and this is more of like an industry thing, I guess, like in terms of like financial stuff. But I think cloud gaming is just going to be a
Hmm.
lot bigger than people think. Like a lot of hardcore gamers are going to be sort of dismissive of it over the next sort of couple of years, and they usually are. Like they were dismissive of Minecraft because it looked crap. They're dismissive of Fortnite, but it's got 100 million players every month. It's but you can't discredit what the general public are gonna
Hmm.
like look at viable versus what us hardcore gamers are going to look at viable. And I think a lot of people are sort of sleeping on what cloud gaming is probably going to do, because at the moment, like we're used to paying $300, $400, $500 for a console, going home, paying an extra 60 just to
Right.
play one game. Um, that is a massive barrier of entry for people to play a game. And then you've got next year potentially, yeah, next year you've got Stadia coming out, which is you basically buy the controller and you don't even need that controller. You just need to buy the dongle. I think you can just use an Xbox
Yeah.
360 controller or something, um, which is sort of nuts. So no console, and then it's probably going to be subscription based, or you can buy the games outright. The subscriptions are probably going to be pretty cheap. People are getting used to that because of Netflix. So you're probably looking at a barrier to entry for less than $50, maybe. Maybe less than 100 if at the far end of it. That barrier entry is then like a fifth of what we're used to paying. So that means potentially we've got 5 times as many players
Sure.
coming in
Sure.
within the next decade, which is insane. And if you think about like the sort of ramifications of that throughout the industry, and not just we're going to have more developers, we're going to have more people playing games, more people making games. There's going to be more games to play, and people are going to be totally fine with playing games over the cloud. Like it's just going to become a normal thing. Like obviously, there's going to be hardcore guys that stream games and stuff, but
I mean, yeah, as much as I want to pretend that like I'm holding on to physical copies for dear life and that, like I
it's
don't
going away.
play movies anymore.
Yeah, and
I haven't
music
for
as
quite a
well. Like
while.
music is a very good sort of, well, movies and music as well. Like that whole industry. Like just look how that curve went.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
hardcore movie goers out there that will still buy the Blu-rays and stuff, but the vast majority of the general public that aren't into that, like the hardcore moviegoers, will still buy the physical copies, but the vast majority of people will just stream it on Netflix or they'll stream it somewhere because they don't care. Like it works,
Right.
they're getting that quality out of it, and that's all that they care about. And most people don't notice the difference when they're streaming a game. I know there's obviously arguments out there for people that say, "Oh, I live in a crazy rural area where my internet connection's only 10 megabytes." You're the minority now. Unfortunately, that's this is just how the industry is going to go, and I think it's going to be a massive explosion of how many gamers we're going to have. Like we're talking about games that are selling 10 million units, and we're like, wow, that did really well. Like we're going to start looking at games that what we're going to start calling like quadruple A games, or like quad A games or whatever, where it's 100 million players. Like games like Fortnite are going to become the new normal almost. So then it everything's going to shift, and whether that's going to be good or bad, I don't know. I don't think anyone does know, and anyone will be stupid to even say that they do know. But to
Hmm.
ignore it is sort of a disservice to us as gamers, and we need to take this very very seriously almost, because people like might dismiss it because that's just a gimmick. It's not going to make a difference. But we saw other things as gimmicks in the past, as we've sort of looked at, and we thought 3D, it's not going to work. It's going to too many people are going to be needed to like develop the game, and it's not going to be a viable sort of platform. It's like the joke was on us because here we are in 2019 with a completely different attitude towards it. So yeah, I think a storm is coming with that, and I think people should sort of keep an eye on it. But I hope the games. still keep great. That's the only thing I really care about. So yeah,
as long as the games are good, I'll be okay with that.
we'll see. But yeah, that sort of wraps it up. Unless you've got any other points.
Nope, I think that ties it up in a nice bow.
Yeah, cool.
Very different, but I like that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, anyone listening to this, like, if you've got any things which you thought that we missed, obviously we've only got an hour to talk about this shit. So if you've got a point that you want to bring up that you thought was personal to you, or like a certain game or a certain platform, like, let us know. Like, either in comments or like tweet at us and stuff. So yeah. From us two, I'd like to say a massive thank you for listening in this episode on episode 4. Evan, where can people find you, man?
Episode 5.
Episode 5. Sorry, shit. I'm way ahead. Well, way behind myself.
No, that's all right. I just saved you from all the emails that we won't get.
Yeah.
You can find me on Twitter, Giant Bomb, and Sifted as the Stand User. Best name on the internet there.
Hey, at least you said it straight this time compared to last episode.
I just gave up last time. Yeah, I stumbled.
I just want to go to bed.
Yeah, fuck it. All right, and Vin, how about yourself?
Yeah, you can find me at Hillthought Games on Twitter. You can find me some of my indie games I make. I'm making little pixel art games at the minute, and I also post up some concept art, so you can follow that stuff if you're into it. You can also find the podcast on Twitter. We are at Coffee Beer Cast. We're still... I know I've been pretty lazy. I need to get around to actually populating platforms and stuff, so we can actually start getting a bit more viewership. I might actually do that this week because I've got a bit of spare time. So hopefully I'll be able to get it out on Spotify and Google Play and all that sort of stuff pretty soon. So, but if you do want to keep up to the podcast, we're always on Twitter. So at Coffee Beer Cast, like, follow us on there, and we'll sort of keep you up to date on what we're up to and all that sort of good stuff. So I think that's it.
Yep. That is it.
Yep.
We are out.
All right. So we'll catch you guys next time. That's up.
Mitch and me are going to Disneyland.
I don't think you are, but...
That is such a deep cut, it's not even worth saying. Yeah. All right.